Culture is a unique project to tell you about the history and development of Chinese food in the UK. The project team of Ming-Ai Institute will bring you back to 1884 when Chinese food was first officially introduced to Britain and bring you to the present.
In this project, we have done research on the history and development of British Chinese food culture. Now let us bring you back to the past. In the 17th century, tea was the first item of Chinese food to be consumed in quantity in the West. The import of Chinese tea has changed the drinking habits of British people ever since. During the 1880s, London's first Chinatown emerged. This was the district around Limehouse, where many Chinese sailors had settled. In 1896, Li Hongchong, the most influential Chinese diplomat at the time, paid visits to the United Kingdom, other European countries, and the United States. These visits were associated with the controversial invention of chop suey. In the 1930s, regional dishes from Ningbo, Fuzhou, Hainan, Shantou and Shanghai were served in Liverpool by ex-Chinese seamen. During World War II, the recipe of Chinese cake was introduced to Britons. Chinese cake was one of the published recipes named after wartime allies and used little meat due to food shortages and rationing. After the war, and in the late 1950s, char siu, sweet and sour dishes, and egg foo yong first appeared on Chinese menus, sometimes alongside curry dishes and a few Western dishes. In 1963, Peking duck was introduced to Britain. The late Princess Margaret and her then husband Lord Snowdon endowed Chinese food with fame. It was not long after that that crispy duck was created in the United Kingdom. Around 1970, use of ginger, bean sprouts, dried citrus peel and soy sauce were taught to be used in the Chinese cook's basic training. The now well-known phrase, Hong Kong style, emerged to indicate a modified Cantonese cuisine which combined exotic or expensive ingredients and Western catering. Chinese recipes first appeared in British women's magazines. Large food shops and supermarkets and mainstream manufacturers began to develop this market. In 1993, the sale of Chinese food had a year-on-year increase of 20%, ranking after Indian food as the second most popular ethnic food in Britain. Meanwhile, customers started to develop their own exotic meals. During the 1990s, noodles were hailed as the new universal food, and Chinese noodle houses began to spring up throughout Britain. At the beginning of the new millennium, regionality was replacing authenticity as a selling point. At this time, 65% of British households owned a wok. Oral history is a good way to present our memories, our stories and our cultures. In this project, we interviewed more than 20 people who shared their life stories with us.
Sometimes I dream about a dish. Well, I try and travel as much as I can because I learn a lot. When I first started, it was really trying to bring memories, food memories that I had, and I'd call up my mum or my grandmother and say, does this work with this?
I spent lots of time in the kitchen when I was small, watching and helping my mother.
This improves the best.
Food is culture. Give another 200 years down the road, put all international food.
我係中國人咧，比如生日啊，有乜時節咧， 佢擺埋去食西餐。
So the memories of the family, and of course Chinese family, means food.
Say will differ in Germany or in Holland or in Russia or in Poland simply because of what is available.
每個廚房都有個做分，即係可以保佑啊廚房啊平平安安。These days, a lot of materials can be thrown in from all part of the world.
香港偷鑊咧係隻雙耳鑊啊嘛，英國偷鑊咧係隻鑊餅。
And since the 90s, we started to bring in soy sauces, hoisin sauce, and ground bean sauce. So those are some of the popular sauces that gained an early entry into the country.
Peking cuisine was started by Mr. Kwok, early 60s probably. He invented the crispy duck.
The Chinese have always been eating a lot of different styles of cuisines over the last 20-30 years.
因为山东人有一个讲究，就是家里来人了要吃面。
西人咧有啲味覺係重啲嘅。
Sort of saw some lemon or something, something vaguely Chinese, and I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing.
In general, lack of choice.
The future of food is going to be exciting. I think it's going to be very competitive.
There's still a lot of people that think that Chinese food is foreign food, and it's not. It's English food cooked a different way.
I think British Chinese food is used to being more British, but is becoming more and more authentic and more Chinese. Because the British public has moved on and become very sophisticated about Chinese food.
Ming-Ai's British Chinese food culture in the UK is so important because it traces the history of Chinese food and its development in the UK. And this, I can't stress how important this is because I personally believe that in order to look to the future, you actually have to learn from the past in order to get a direction of where you want to be headed and what your goal is. And I personally hope that it's a healthy one.
You will find our oral history archives, research findings, articles, education materials and other information on our project website.